Okay, so this is our Feisty Friday. Do you want to give kind of the background on Feisty Friday and what you were thinking?
Yeah, so Feisty Friday, this has been a dream of mine for, I think I first joined recruiting blogs back in 2011. So I've been thinking about this for a long time. And so it was really just, the intent was a free form, free flowing, like let's just get on some public place, make asses of ourselves and bitch about all the dumb things we saw this week. So Feisty Friday was born. Yay! So here we are, and there's so much dumb stuff in the world that, you know, we will not run out of things to talk about.
Our fuel, we are full on fuel, especially this week.
We have a lot of fuel. And we're pretty combustible, so this is not being an issue.
I actually have a topic that I am just dying to start with. Yeah. It is about social recruiting, and specifically the use of Instagram for social recruiting. Now, background. This week, I'm sure all of you know, the Social Recruiting Summit was happening in San Francisco. And I'm not going to call anybody out particular because I haven't seen any data. And I haven't given, they haven't responded to my request for said data yet. And I want to give people a little extra time because I'm not rude like that.
Yeah.
However, so yesterday, Animal posted that, I'm going to find the exact stats here. He said, this is the tweet they sent. Instagram is king of social engagement. 58 times engagement over Facebook and 120 times over Twitter.
This is my skeptical face.
Yeah, I have one of those too for two reasons. One that actually Aaron Lintz brought up this morning is that how many people are members of Instagram that are not members of Facebook?
I don't have Instagram. It's like the last place that I haven't gone to yet.
Well, and this is the other part. You can't search profiles on Instagram.
Then what's the point?
So to me, it's actually not a recruiting tool. It is a branding tool.
Word.
And yes, you should have engagement within branding, but how are you measuring it? Like, what does it actually add up to? What does it matter?
Yeah. And what's the end goal, right? Because I'm thinking if I'm in recruiting, and I'm assuming this is recruiting focused stuff, the end goal is that I'm connecting with people I could potentially connect with a hiring manager.
Yes.
So how does Instagram get me there? I'm not following that. I might, maybe I could become internet famous like a Kardashian. But other than that, like, is that making a placement? I don't know.
Well, okay, sure. Like, more eyes on your brand is better. But again, who's going to follow that account in the first place? What's their incentive?
Yeah.
What's the outcome? I feel like unless you're some big company that has all this time to just waste on, and that is a waste. If it doesn't actually contribute to recruiting and pipeline, I think it's a waste.
But Katrina, there's social media budget to spend.
Okay. That's great. I genuinely feel like if we're going to preach stats like that we know are so widely spread, and we're kind of, spreading the gospel of social recruiting, can we please stop emphasizing emphasizing the choice to do things just because, instead of giving real metrics and real case studies, things we can actually go do.
I would like to see some actual war stories, right? Like, if you're telling me here's this, amazing level of engagement or whatever, show me something specifically, like this is, person A ended up talking to person B and this was the result of that, because I'm pretty sure, I can't remember the exact statistic, but I think it's either 72 or 78% of statistics are pulled out of someone's ass. So
that's exactly what Mike was saying.
I could be off on the number a little bit, but it does make me wonder.
I actually, in every presentation I do that's data-based, I always include one slide that says, usually I pick 86 as my number. 86% of statistics are completely made up. And you're lucky this is the only one I made up.
Right? I mean, that was the last year. I think we need some refreshed data.
Yeah. And Mike, please don't spend time on Instagram. I know you're being sassy, but still.
Should I get Instagram? Here's the bigger question. Should I get Instagram? Because I don't have it. It's like the last frontier, I've been really fighting it. I'm a Gen Xer. I'm a latchkey kid. I'm not one of these social ninjas.
Right.
So I'm like, I ain't going on Instagram because I'm just not that hipster, but now I feel left out.
I mean, if you like photography and you like kind of just like, for me, I love taking pictures of sunrises and my puppy and that kind of stuff. And I feel like I don't share that on Facebook because people would get sick of me. So I have Instagram just for that. I don't.
So people on Instagram? maybe that's the secret right there.
Huh?
Maybe that's it. It's the place where people don't get sick of you.
Yes. Because the stream, it's not optimized. The stream is real time, where Facebook is optimized by what you're sharing, how you share it, all of that. Instagram is real time, which it makes it even less effective for recruiting.
So is it like Twitter then? Because that's kind of Twitter, right? Where it's like a very in the moment, like if the moment passes, if the tweet is gone.
Yep.
What do you do? So
Twitter.
I don't recruit on Twitter either.
Why don't you recruit on Twitter? And now I'm sitting here trying to make stuff up all by myself again. Jackie, get back in here. I knew you'd come back.
I would
save me.
I don't have makeup. I'm not prepared, Katrina.
Don't matter.
Outside, look in my garage. Oh.
Mike, you're cracking me up.
Did you see? I was saying you have to use it for boobs. That's what I said. That's how you know who to follow. Boobs.
Whatever works. I mean, you can find those on LinkedIn now too. So
I know. Apparently, I think I told you that I was recruiting and I had an automatic, because I'm the retweet queen for recruiting, and I was doing prostitutes. I kept prostitute ads. Yeah. So if you want a job, I can hook you up. But I think it was just in the UK. Who else would use hashtag recruiting?
Exactly. But I followed hashtag recruiting a few times, and every time I do, it is just a spam bot. It's constant. And the funny part to me is actually that recruiters use hashtag recruiting for jobs that are not recruiting jobs.
They do.
Thinking like, oh yeah, go take a look. It happens all the time. But they use that hashtag thinking that job seekers search hashtag recruiting.
Listen, I will unfollow somebody in 2 seconds when they start putting jobs. And I love Twitter, but there are accounts that post new jobs every day of what they're hiring for. Is that water? I've never seen you drink water.
I know.
Is it warm outside?
No, it's already 11:30 here, so I'm past coffee phase. Coffee ends around, and it's empty.
I forgot it's coffee, water, wine. Right.
Well, normally we only talk at like 9 a.m., right? So
I know everybody wishes they had my morning phone calls in the morning, but I reserved those for Katrina. Sorry. But Instagram is weird. I just sent you a thing that I saw. I didn't read it. About recruiting on Instagram by social time. I would like to think that they know.
If anybody knows, it might be them.
But then they were talking about stats, and the first thing I saw on that page was that 18% of recruiters in Ireland.
Yeah.
Like,
which is statistically what? Like 0.18% of recruiters across?
Yeah. I think that's why I love social talent, though, because it's in Ireland and they're,
And their examples on this article include a Taylor Swift screenshot, General Electric, because they play like machines.
Yep.
But like, who see all those hashtags they're using? It's because they can't do any search.
Right.
Which if you can't search, it's not a recruiting tool.
Wait, the time suck.
Yeah. Now, how do you feel about recruiting on Twitter?
I think you can recruit on Twitter. You can have relationships. Me and Mike have formed a relationship on Twitter. I think I've expanded a lot of it, but it's a communication. And I think that's what people don't realize, because they're like, well, what can you do in 140 categories? And with those of us that are on Twitter a lot, we actually have conversations like live on Twitter about certain topics, and you share it. And I think it's made for people that have a little bit of common sense. I think it's like an upgrade, because it's not a full conversation. Like, you have to figure out what we're talking about in the first place. I think people who can't recruit on Twitter are just like cop-outs. It's the same people that can't find people to network at a networking event. Like, they just don't know how to do it.
Well, I think if you know those people that you know on Twitter, the ones that you follow enough and you see tweet enough that you feel like you know their personality. A great example of this, people always say they know Matt because they follow him on Twitter, and they think they know his personality just because of that. Right. But he's one example. I've had people say that to me, like, oh, I follow you on Twitter. Like, I know so much about you. However, it's about how you use that information. So you know what story I'm about to tell. It's the same story I tell every time, but the guy who figured out I was a Steelers fan and started talking trash to me about the Steelers, and then used that as a leverage point to be able to convert me into a candidate, because he's like, do you want to work in Pittsburgh? It was smart.
But then, we were looking, this is a good example when we're looking for writers or people to add content and things like that. One thing that people don't realize, and it is because of the search capability with the hashtags, that they can go back and find it later. So yesterday, when I was talking to someone that we talked about doing a Blab with next week, he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I've just started doing Twitter. I've been following you guys for years. Like, I've seen all your Blabs and I know what you did. I'm not Taylor Swift, but I'm not famous, but it's nice to know, because the information's always there when you're trying to do a search. And I think people are getting confused between recruiting and networking. Yes. On these tools. I mean, I get a little creeped out by some of the people on Facebook, and I think you remember I was like, so should I just be friends with my real friends, or should I have like a work account or whatever? And Matt is funny because he said, people who are following me on Facebook are going to get me on Facebook. They're not looking for anything professional. They're going to get my kids' graduation pictures.
I think the other part too is that people are forgetting something that you remind me of a lot in your posts about kind of training recruiters. It's that they're the research phase. People are trying to get the quick answer. They're trying to get the fast, right? So they're not doing the research that they're supposed to be doing. And that's the purpose of social recruiting. I do not believe you can have an entire recruiting conversation on social media yet. No. But you can use it for different phases, for different purposes. You can use it for sourcing. You can use it for research. You can use it for continued conversation and keeping a candidate engaged, right?
Right.
I mean, think about how often we could get away with sending a quick DM to someone and being like, hey, I am going to send you an email tonight, but I'm just running behind. I'll get back to you soon. How much of I think that would make a huge impact versus if you went in and you were like, hey, I sent you, I forgot to email you for a week. So you got started on this Twitter thing.
Say, Katrina?
Huh?
I say that all the time. What are you trying to say?
No. You got me started on this whole Twitter recruiting, because my last question to you right before you cut out was, why don't you recruit on Twitter?
Yeah, that was kind of freaking me out too.
Technologically challenged, can't you tell?
Well, 26 minutes in.
Computer now, so how it goes. I feel the lighting's not fabulous in the kid cave, but here we are. Why don't
I was trying to jump up and help a sister out. Look at me, no makeup. I ain't got nothing. Lighting.
I hate pretty girls who talk about, look at me, I don't have any makeup on.
Look at me, but I have to do it like this so I don't look fat.
I got to have the
I know how to work social media.
I clearly do not. I'm my recruiting career is on its last legs because I don't know how to work technology. So recruiting on Twitter, I mean, at least you can search for people, right? Like a shot into the camera, right?
Yes.
So I mean, I have found people on Twitter, or I better yet have been found on Twitter, to be completely honest. You know, I've posted links to jobs or I've said things about, you know, open jobs or whatever, but I've never really like dug in and said, let me build a call list, because I still have this kind of wacky idea that I should probably fish in my own pond, and my own pond is stocked with resumes and phone numbers. So I kind of start there. And frankly, as long as I have the activity and I have the pipeline and I'm making good, solid hires, nobody really gives a shit where they come from.
Right.
True.
So as soon as I run out of the million or so resumes in my own database, or the few people I can manage to find on LinkedIn, or, you know, through a GitHub search or whatever, depending on what I'm looking for, when I run out of those, then I'll worry about getting all creative and shit. Right now, I don't care.
You know what? Amen. Drop your mic. Exactly.
Off again.
You have to, it works. I think, well, kind of where we were going was that it can be very helpful in different phases. You know, for example, on Twitter, you can use it as kind of your research tool to reach out to someone with a better context. But yeah, I think I have yet to find anyone who has a social recruiting story that I can buy as a scalable option for a recruiting role.
And
it is
scalable, right? Because how many recruiters do you know are working less than 20, 25 open positions at a given time?
Yep.
Have the oddball, like I have 3, you know, retained special searches or something. I think that's a very different animal. But for the purposes of who listens to us, these are recruiters just like us who have a desk of, you know, 50 and don't have time for that shit, right? When I go on Pinterest, it's because I want to forget about recruiting for 5 minutes and go find a crock pot recipe.
I'm going to marinate some chicken. All right? Get out of my way.
Exactly. That's why I'm on Pinterest, so I can make bows for Hannah's cheerleading team.
Right? Yes, the big Texas bows. They're like steering wheels, right?
The bigger the bow, the better the mama, as they say down south.
Yes, they do. And the bigger the hair, the closer to heaven.
We can go on these all day. We actually did yesterday, I'm pretty sure. Most of our conversation was Southern one-liners, but different topic, different day. I will step off of my social recruiting punching bag because as a marketer, I can tell you that I have yet to find scalable ways to make one-on-one connections. So if recruiting figures it out first, I'm going to be embarrassed and ashamed because I've been trying to do this since 2008.
Well, there are some recruiters that know everything, Katrina. I can't believe you haven't picked up on that yet.
Well, should we all start dancing? No? Okay. All right. Amy, your turn. What do you got? What's in the queue as just driving you nuts this week?
What am I going to bitch about today? Oh, this is probably going to get me in trouble. I got to tell you, there are 2 things in recruiting that piss me off more than anything. They're kind of the same. It's candidates who lie and recruiters who make bad assumptions.
Jackye wrote a post about candidates who lie this week.
Yeah, it probably needed to be said. So a friend of mine had a situation, may or may not have been recent, where a candidate was talking to, you know, a few different people in the same company that she works for. And of course, you know, we do take, or my friend takes some notes. I mean, it wasn't like completely foreign that this person had been in conversations. And so recruiter A calls recruiter B and is like, hey, what's going on with this candidate? Oh, well, there's an offer and the team is talking to, and all it, like, we're at the altar, you know, like we're ready to say our I do's. Well, really? Because the candidate didn't tell me that. Well, that's what happens. I am telling you that. You have the notes. You see the offer letters.
Right?
What's
at
that?
the same company.
And like, but that's not what the candidate said.
I don't care what the candidate said.
I said, I'm telling you what happened. My friend is telling this person what happened. So, my friend asked me what I thought, and I was like, look, that's shady on the candidate's part, but at the same time, I get it, right? Like, Katrina, we talked about assuming good intent. Right. Let's just assume that this candidate is looking at this massive corporation and saying, gosh, I really want to work here. I don't know if this is the job I want. Maybe I want this other one. They're very different. I kind of need to hedge my bets. Like, I'm okay with that, but I'm also very, very transparent. And so I will be like, hey, what's up? So I heard you're having this conversation. Let's talk about it. I think that's perfectly acceptable to kind of gently call out the candidate and to be like, I'm cool with you having these discussions, and I think you should interview wherever you want to interview, but let's not pretend that we don't know. Yeah. Right? That's the one. So that, apparently my advice wasn't super well received. And it kept kind of going back to, well, but the candidate never said that. And I don't know if that's really, kind of what happened. And I'm like, listen, I don't really have a dog in this fight other than we should try to make sure this person lands here. But I think there's a responsibility to trust your coworkers, whether those are split partners, whether they're within your same company, whether they're just, it's a professional courtesy. I would never call up one of you or call any of the other recruiters that we know and be like, well, the candidate didn't say this and this and this. I would expect a professional courtesy that says, I'm going to assume that you're not lying to me because we're both in the same field and we're in this together. Right? And so why don't we jump on a conference call with the candidate and just kind of gently explain, like, hey, dude, we have your back collectively. We're going to work together to do what's right for you. But please just be straight with us. We can't help you if we have misinformation. Yes. Why can't that be the conversation as opposed to this kind of side eye, well, that's not what I
wouldn't be having that conversation.
I was just going to say, I'm like, Jackye would tell them to F off. And that F word is not feisty.
Oh, yes.
No.
That is not the conversation.
I think it's the approach, right? That you're like, okay, let's just have the conversation versus, because I think most recruiters would be like, bye-bye, candidate. Like,
yeah, I was there. I mean, and frankly, it affects people that I work with, but it's not directly my thing. So I'll be, that's as much as I'll say. Try not to get myself in trouble. Yeah. But, my perspective was like, obviously you two need to work this out, but here's what I think. I think this is some shady shit. And I don't dig it. So maybe it's better that I'm a little remote from it, because if I had been directly involved, it may have not gone as well. But that frustrates me. It frustrates me that, candidates have been put in this place where they feel like they can't be straight with us. And I think that goes back to everything we've said about salary negotiations, everything we've said about interviewing. Candidates are basically taught you have to lie to people and you have to lie to recruiters because recruiters are shady and they're not going to help you and they're not going to do the right thing for you. So it's setting up this environment where candidates are trying to play this game that frankly they're not very good at. And then they're pitting recruiters against each other, and it just feeds this monster of negativity. And nobody goes home happy. Nobody gets the job that they want. Nobody gets the right offer. It's all
you'll never trust that candidate again, ever. Even if they get, regardless of who they work for or what position, that will not, you will always have that bad taste in your mouth.
Yep. Exactly. And that's why it's even more important, I think, to get ahead of it now, have the conversation with the candidate and just try to understand, like, I'm going to assume that you did this because you're trying to protect yourself. So let me help you get more comfortable with not having to do that. Until we clear the air, exactly like Jackye said, it's going to be weirdness between us.
Well, and I think there's also an element, we know they're misinformed, but recruiting as an industry does not typically take the time to explain their role, to explain the process, to have, an open, honest conversation, right? Like, in my role with Recruiting Daily, right, my job is to kind of onboard our clients. Talk them through everything that's going to happen, what happens next, and walk them through the marketing campaign that they've decided to work with us on. If I didn't take the time up front to say, it takes 6 weeks to get a webinar going. Yeah. This is all the information I need at a minimum 6 weeks before. If I never did that, how could I expect them to follow through, right? That translates across the board here. If you're trying to candidates go in there with this kind of like boxing glove, ready to fight mentality.
Expensive.
Right? And it's like, yo, I want to fill this role. I want you to be the one. It's kind of like, like I'm picturing like a, movie where this desperate woman is like, I want you to be the one. It's true. Like, we want them to be the one, but sometimes they aren't. And that doesn't mean that anyone's a bad person. It means they're not the right person.
Well, and you have to set the expectation. Sorry, I feel like I'm crashing y'all's party, but you have to set the expectation. When I was working, well, I used to do volume recruiting, a lot of volume recruiting, and it wasn't like cool volume recruiting. It was Java developer, H-1B volume recruiting. So it was really hard. You're dealing with third parties, lots of personalities, regulations, and all this stuff. And so I didn't want to do the dance every day. And most, some people are passive aggressive. Katrina knows I'm a little aggressive. As soon as I see something that goes sideways, I am on the phone and be like, what the fuck is this? And they usually say, Jackye, that's not happening. And I'm like, oh, okay. Thanks, bye. But I used to do it like this. I'm like, let me explain to you how this is going to go down. Like, I'm not going to explain to you how this works. I'm not going to explain to you how this is, what I want. Let me tell you, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to talk to you. You're going to tell me yes. I'm going to present it and you're going to get the job.
Yep.
If at any point you do not follow these steps, I'm going to pull you from contention until we can get back on this path. If there's anything that's going to get in the way of this path, we need to know now. And I would call all my candidates every 3 days and said, has anything changed? Are you still going to accept it at this rate? Are you talking to anybody else? And I think that generationally, there's a change in the way people communicate. And I do talk in 140 characters or less. But back in the day, when all I had was a freaking phone and my reputation, that was it. I had your resume, I had my phone, and I had a fax machine.
You have Instagram.
But I also have you have kids. Like, I have a 16-year-old. I have to be on Instagram.
Yeah. See, mine, I don't know. Maybe I'm just afraid. My older kids are like technically adults now and can be arrested, so I kind of back off a little. But I have little ones that I don't think have discovered Instagram. But I'm telling you, Skype is going to get my 10-year-old in trouble. Who is Squishy? Who is Squishy? He like Minecraft and like named all of his friends like this dumb, Anyway, I gotta
Instagram. He's with that piece too, but that's not what we're talking about. Go ahead, Ben. Yeah, they.
All right. So it's frustrating for me, and I'm trying to figure out. And I would love if there is somebody out there smarter than me that can help us get to this place of how can we get recruiters, our partners, our coworkers, wherever, whether we work for the same company or not, how can we get back to this place where we started when we took this job as starry-eyed youngsters who couldn't get a real job anywhere else, so we fell into recruiting? Yeah, true. Nobody does this shit on purpose. How do we get back to that place of trust? Right.
I think that's a great idea for a blog post. I was actually just writing down that I want to write a how recruiting works. A candidate's guide. Like, I'm going to explain it to you. I will draw it for you. I'll show you, but it's something that you could hand to a candidate and be like, this is how my job does. This is how my job works. So if you have any questions about how my job works or why I'm not following up or any of that, let's start here.
You and Amy did that podcast, right? About salaries?
Yeah.
I watched it. So
see?
That's one of the things that pisses me off more than anything when people try to jack with me about how much they make. And I think I told you, Katrina, I always tell them, look, I want to get $2 million so I could get my commission and go home. I would only need one placement. I get money based on how much you want. So I want you to make more money because I will make more money. But with other people, I used to tell them, I did this when I was in sales too. I'll be like, well, just tell me how much you want to make. How much do you want to make? $100,000. And I would say, I will present your resume for $100,000. But you need to know, if the hiring manager doesn't think you're worth that, you will not be getting paid that. Well, how much can I make? As much as the hiring manager, the one who's going.
I do not hold the crystal ball. I do not tick in the Excel spreadsheet.
And I always I guarantee that they don't think you're worth as much as your mama thinks you're worth. You need to bring it all together.
Yeah. No, for sure. And by the way, why is your mom sitting in the lobby while you're interviewing?
And that's his child, because she's babysitting the child in the lobby.
Helicopter parents. My husband and I just talked about this last night. Like, we were left to be basically raised by wolves. And so now as parents, we're all like, oh my God, I can't leave my, 12-year-old alone because I was home alone starting at 6 and look at me. And anyway. So yeah, it's a.
I love that though, Jackye. Don't jack me about how much you make. Don't lie. Don't lie, period.
Salary stuff. I love this topic, and this is something that gets me heated every time. How does one get published in the Forbes?
Jackye just fell over. Look at her stomach.
How ridiculous do I have to write an article for Forbes to pick it up? I'm just curious. Like, I generally, push my shit to, Katrina and the team because they like me and they let me get away with stuff. But I'm just curious.
Because you know who gets published in Forbes? That's rude.
Not us is the answer. Not any of us, because we talk too real. We don't
be over.
They're trying to say controversial things. They're trying to be controversial to drive eyes, and it's not real. And
it's controversial. It's like saying Taylor Swift is pregnant. Shit. We don't work
exactly. It's an epidemic. It is an industry epidemic that we coach people with the wrong information. Go tweet that, Mike. Say it. Twitter. Say it. Taylor Swift is pregnant, and it was just revealed on a podcast or a Blab, whatever.
Don't forget to copy POTUS on tweets.
But
this is messed up this plan.
Honestly, though, it drives me nuts. It
really bothers me
because
my feelings hurt. Because I'm like, granted, I'm always little kid on the totem pole, so I still get excited when I'm on lists, which is funny.
I know. I feel like one list in all my years of recruiting, and I get so excited. And then and I remember, okay, this is a true story. Speaking of list, I'm part of our larger social media efforty kind of stuff at my company, and we had our monthly meeting, and they were talking about all these really awesome people to follow on Twitter. Guess who wasn't on it? Nobody here.
None of us.
Was any looking at this list? I'm like, I know I'm smarter than that person. I know I'm funnier than that one. There were some good people. Don't get me wrong, but people like I met that guy at a conference, and he's really not that smart.
He's one of those 86% fact men.
Sit there and look at the list, and I got all sad. Maybe people don't like me as much as I think they do.
But Amy, you recruit. This is what me and Katrina do for a whole living. And people will say, and I'm not on there. That's all
Truth. Actually, why 75% of my job at least is writing random articles and trying to make on those lists.
I'm not one to follow, bitch. You best be following. I'm going to call people out. I'm going to say, write this down, Katrina. The list who got it wrong.
The list of people you should not follow under any circumstance because they shout bullshit.
Don't follow these people because you can't handle the truth.
You should not watch at this conference.
Yes. And I'm going to put it behind a gate, and the password to get in there is going to be bullshit. So you have to type in bullshit to even see the list of bullshit.
I like it.
And then you have to answer a question. A percentage question.
They say disagree when they hit submit and it says disagree, but F you! Like a big picture.
And the funny part is Jackye knows I know how to do this. I'll make it happen if I wanted to.
If we were in high school, we're definitely the we're the Lindsay Lohans to the Mean Girls. right? I mean, that's who we are. It's like these really, like, that's why
we're not popular because we're honest.
Yeah.
And it's required.
Right.
I've always been that kid.
Yeah, I just
popular kid.
Right. Nice girls.
Nice girl.
So I actually have one more thing I want to talk about because it's been on my mind. It's one of my vents, and we have about 15 more minutes left. And I know we can talk about this for more than 15 minutes, but I'm going to throw it out there. Who's responsible for making someone a good manager? So I have worked for a series of douchebags. And I've also worked for some amazing people, and I'm not going to call anyone out on being either. However, I had a moment. I was actually having a conversation with some people I used to work with when we had our boss that we actually called the devil. We used the devil emoji. We referred to her as the devil. Now, my question and the conversation was kind of like, okay, so we have managers in our businesses, right? What if they suck and kind of everyone revolts and they start quitting? Managers are not held accountable for bad retention, for being assholes, for breaking people emotionally or right? And the only way that we justify that someone is a good manager when we hire them is that they've done it before. And that means nothing.
Or, which I think is worse, they're good at the job that they're being told to manage.
Yeah,
you're a great
people. Some people manage.
Have you managed?
Sorry, I didn't hear you, Amy, because I was talking. I didn't hear you.
Oh, well, because I'm, Lindsay Lohan over here, Regina. So thanks for that. But people are, we say, hey, you've been a great salesperson. You brought in the most money. So we're going to have you manage salespeople.
Right.
That's your skill. Your skill is to go out and sell stuff.
Right. You don't see football players becoming football coaches.
No, they become commentators.
Which I'm not even going to touch. You don't see basketball players becoming basketball coaches yet. In the workplace, the infrastructure of our business is that if you can do it well, you could teach other people to do it well, and you can be a good manager. And I think that's another, just across the board, most managers are awful.
Yeah.
They're awful.
87%.
And I'm like you. I'm really lucky to have really great bosses. My boss now is great. I've had bosses that I still to this day am in touch with and friends with. But I think part of that was me just understanding that I actually had a boss say this to me once, I have to teach my boss how to manage me.
Yeah.
I have to be the one to kind of help guide that and clue them into, whatever my issues are, my little idiosyncrasies or whatever that, might make me appear difficult or might, you have to lead me in a different way or something. So does that mean I'm responsible for making good bosses? Maybe to some degree, but I think it's also the boss that needs to recognize that. Like I have to put myself in a position of almost humbling myself to my team to make sure that I'm giving them what they need and leading them in the way that they need to be led.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of bosses come into it like, well, now I'm in charge and I can do what I want. And that's the opposite of what should happen.
Right. And honestly, and recruiters get screwed by bad managers. I have interviewed for jobs before and said, hell no, when I met that hiring manager and I was like, I don't like them. I don't want to work for them.
I used to tell my candidates about the boss prior for them going. Like, let me just explain to you how this person is and try to explain a little bit as to why, because it might make a little bit more sense. But I think some of that becomes with emotional IQ, I think we at Recruiting Daily, we don't really have an org chart. It's kind of like an org bush. It kind of rotates. I think it's whoever is most caffeinated at the time. we were talking about how we trade places, like who's going to be HR today. But
never Charney is the answer. Never Charney.
Never. We will all be on vacay, paid for somewhere. But like when me and Katrina, I think it was like the first or second week, and I said, Katrina, every other month, I think I don't know what I'm doing, and I have ego issues. And I would tell her, I was like, this is an ego issue, Katrina. But she knows now that it's been almost a year that sometimes I think I'm doing really good, and sometimes I just think I'm not, because you have to put your whole life out there. So we know how we've learned how to work with each other in order to make stuff work. But I think it takes somebody saying, this scares me, this is what I need from you. And it takes a long time before someone says, I'm not trying to be a hero here. Or else I'd be trying to get my shit on Forbes.
Yeah, and right? And Katrina and I, we had a conversation earlier about where I'm at in my career, and hopefully we can talk about that in next week's Blab. But I had a discussion with some leadership, and it should have been super positive, and it should have been something I'm really excited about. But I kind of took a step back and I was like, "You're trying to get rid of me? What are you saying? Why are you trying to what?" I took it probably in not the best way, at least at first, because of that, my very, very fragile ego.
Ego plays into everything, though. Ego is what we operate on because we have, why would you do all this work? You do the work to get self-gratification. You do the work to get, what does Lisa call it? The green power, money, right? That money, money means something to your value, your self-value. And I was writing about that for our podcast. It's all ego-oriented, especially, and I think in the workplace, it's even more so because it's performance.
Yeah. And a lot of times our compensation is tied to that in the form of commissions or bonuses or promotions or whatever. So I told my boss once, that this recruiting machine runs on Pinot Grigio and Attaboys. And I was not kidding. I was actually dead serious.
Yeah.
Tell me, smart and pat me and buy me wine, and I will kill myself for you, professionally speaking.
Pinot.
Grigio in a box.
In a box. Lovely.
That's my plan for tonight, too.
It's that's the mommy juice box. Yes, it is.
I'm still cracking up at Mike's note about the org bush.
I've coined a new phrase. We have an org bush.
You totally have an org bush. You should write that article for RD, for Recruiting Daily, about an org bush versus an org chart.
I think you've been publicly shamed into writing the article.
I think Matt needs to add it to his new job description. We have kind of an org bush.
As the only lesbian on the team and HR today, I just want to say.
Oh my God, Bush.
I can't wait, though, to see the person that you guys hire for this.
Yes.
Let me just tell you, I read the description, and I'm like, that is my child. That's my firstborn who's getting ready to graduate from UW later this year. And I'm like, she already makes a lot more than that for one. So
No,
so now, but she lives in Seattle too, so obviously that's a different thing. But I think my kid is one of the smarter, more mature 21-year-olds. But yeah, have fun with that.
Yeah. I think we're looking for someone really unique. Considering, this is 2/5 of the team right here. I think the biggest thing for me in hiring someone to work at Recruiting Daily is a balance of momentum, somebody who really appreciates momentum, not just that they can do the job, but that they're always looking for the next cool thing to do. Jackye and I, we bounce ideas off of each other constantly. And it's always like, let's do this. Well, let's do example. This week we were working on an article about Facebook searches, right? We had this whole thing built up, and then I was like, let's do a download so people can just get 30 graph searches. Boom. Yeah. Let's layer that on. Let's actually make it more interactive, something that people can do something with, because there's so many recruiting articles out there that you can't actually do anything with. Just pretty. It's like a phone with no cell service, that's just a piece of crap. That's all it is. It doesn't.
I got called out on that article. That's why I left earlier. Matt was like, I'm calling you out. Did you freaking put Facebook and bullying in one article at the same time? Like, what the hell are you doing? And I said, that was not a bad article. That is called repurposing. I went to blog class, and it's a good
There's a blog class?
Yes, there is a Recruiting Daily.
shit.
There is. We coach.
Sorry.
We do. Anyone who wants to write for us, there's a bit of a learning curve. We make them write it again, write it a different way, tell your story, kind of, really get into
the article for a week, and then they say, now about that graphic, about that picture. What? There's 1,500 words, and all you want to talk about is that picture? Well, maybe you should change the size. And I'm the oldest one here. I should be running shit.
Yeah. You really should. You take turns being CEO too.
Okay. We'll have to talk to Noel about that, but HR is always an open opportunity.
HR is always that's the stretch assignment.
You guys
in trouble.
Well, so we have like 3 minutes, and I just want you to note. So I have a 5-month-old puppy, and she's very sweet. But I finally got her potty trained. I want you to see where she goes when she needs to go potty. Do you see that little cone head?
Are you? She's at the door.
Standing at the door. She's standing at the door, crying, because she's like, "It's time to go potty. Look at Mama. Look at me. It's time to go potty. Look at her
with the cone."
Oh my God! It's like she put herself in timeout.
And that's what it looks. She just stands at the door and waits for me. Like, I need to go potty.
Get it? I'm just gonna go piss over here. Screw you, Mom.
Oh, no, she's gone.
Upstairs.
She's like crouching. Lyric, come here.
I don't know who my dog is.
Come here. You're gonna be on the internet.
You're gonna be on the internet.
I think O'Donnell wants to talk about Instagram.
I'm sorry that I crashed y'all's party. Look
at those ears.
Oh.
She is so mad about the cone.
So mad. She's like, "You take me, people. Get me off the line."
It's like, did you put me on TV with a freaking cone?
For real.
There goes her dog commercial opportunities. Nice cone.
I know. I'm gonna get a cone too if I ever need to get fixed.
That's what Mike just said.
Mike just said. I need to know more about this blog class, and I want to know if you run it through the Hemingway app.
Matt, I mean, you've met Matt. We have goals. We have dreams of conforming the world to our level of quality. So
that's no.
Let me just say, it was in person in a conference room with Matt. It's a good thing I'm a smoker, or else I'd never get through it, I think.
Yeah, every blog must be about a book's length,
yeah.
or at least it is by the time he's done editing.
Katrina has to edit my stuff too, so that's why she's in on it. So she gets it. I mean, what? I was like, change my title to writer. It says editor.
There you go.
The only editor.
There you go. You're
3 editors to edit.
I'm telling you, it's a Charney voice thing. I've been working with Charney since 2008. It took me 8 years to get it to a point where he'd even trust me to like do a first pass at something. So
that's okay, because my stuff is getting good, and I repurpose something, and it's got a landing page.
I did not mean to get feisty on Charney today.
That's on a DL. That's a secret group.
He's not here.
So anyway, like I was saying.
All right, ladies. Thank you so much for joining our Feisty Friday first edition. We're going to post this, and gentlemen who are watching, we're going to post this on recruiting blogs every week after we record it with some notes, some articles, some must read, some don't you dare read this maybe. And we'll keep the Feisty Fridays going. We'll talk same time, same place next week with great technology. This is going to be posted. We have this recording, and it will be on recruitingblogs.com by this afternoon.
So I probably should apply to that job.
All right, party people, we're out of here. Thank you.